invitation for us to stay with our same God when things are difficult. Can I still lean into him? Can I still believe and trust that he's there? This gospel that we hear, the whole passion narrative, it just shows a lot of fear. And we see ourselves in different characters and people of this story. Judas, what is his sin? What caused him to do that? I think primarily when he sees what Jesus is doing, and he feels like, why is God doing that? God should be doing this instead. You know what? I can't trust God to take care of my own happiness, and so I guess I'm just going to have to do it myself. I'm going to have to take matters into my own hands. You know, I know I'm supposed to not do this, but you know what? Doesn't God want me to be happy? And you can think about, for us, you can think about relationships, you can think about school, you know, like, I know I'm not supposed to, you know, cheat on this or whatever. What am I supposed to do? Fail this class? Fail this semester? I can't trust, I can't just let go and leave it in God's hands. I have to do it. In the garden, when Jesus is approached, the disciples become afraid that God's not going to protect them. Just like when we get attacked by our roommates for something that's not our fault, when we are misunderstood by people, and we feel the need to fight back, to meet them right where they're at, to not take that. It's fear. It's fear that causes us to respond that way. But Jesus responds and says, do you think that I cannot call upon my Father, and he will not provide me at this moment with more than 12 legions of angels? And I think that's the key, is that God, the creator of the universe, the one who's all powerful, who's all knowing, who has blessed us in all sorts of ways, that even in that moment when I feel overwhelmed and scared and attacked, that somehow that same God is still just as present, still just as active, trying to do something. And if I can just stay there and trust and lean into him, that he's doing something beautiful. But it's hard to feel that, you know? I mean, even today, I had a young lady in my office, a student here, and she's like, Father, the depression is hitting, and I'm having thoughts of hurting myself again. Like, where's God at? If God was here, why would I be having these thoughts? I thought I was doing so much better. What's wrong with me? Or maybe a relationship doesn't go well, and it's like, you know what, forget this. If God was here, this wouldn't have happened. But somehow, those circumstances, those things that feel so out of our control, that somehow God, he's got it all, and he's inviting us still to trust, to lean into him. And so Jesus shows us what Adam and Eve were supposed to do. That in moments of fear, we come to the light and we talk to him. That when we're tempted and ashamed and we want to cover ourselves and hide, is to let it all out. And so the key line to this whole gospel is what Jesus says in the garden. He says, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. I think this is the key to us opening up healing that God has for us. And so whatever the situation is, hopefully, maybe everything's going great, and it's like, that's awesome. But to remember this, that in moments when it's like, I am not happy about this, I do not want this. The thing Jesus does is he cries out, and he's like, Father, I'm not happy about this. Why have you abandoned me? Why have you forsaken me? Why have you left me here all alone? Why have you forgotten me? That's what it feels like. But Jesus wasn't abandoned. We know his mother, all these women named Mary, they're all standing in the He's not alone. He just feels like it. That same God that brought us into existence, that holds everything, he has not left us. He can't. He's eternal. He's everywhere. But it feels like it because things are not happening the way I want them to. And so if I can remind myself that he is here and I choose this, that if this is what's happening and it's part of your plan, then I say yes. We get to cry out, we get to complain, and then we have a choice of whether we can keep fighting it, or we can say, all right, God, I don't understand, I don't want this, but your will be done. There's a story that's been on my heart about a priest named Father Walter Chisek. He was an American Jesuit. He was Polish. And so he actually volunteered because they were looking for priests to go to Poland at the beginning of World War II. And in particular, they were looking for priests to kind of sneak into the Soviet Union and minister to the people there where the faith is illegal. And so he volunteered and he went, and kind of sure enough, he was arrested and he was put in the Gulag, the Soviet work camp. And he spent 15 years there. And every day they'd go out and they'd work. They weren't really fed. And at night they would be interrogated and tortured. They were trying to learn secrets of the American government, right? And so they knew that every night that eventually people would break. That everyone had a break. According to our own strength, everyone has a breaking point. But in the midst of this, in the midst of torture one night, he had that thought that if God, who called me to this, and I was excited about this, that if God has somehow brought me to this point, that God must somehow still be here, and through this wanting to do something very good. And so, even though this torture is horrible and I feel like I'm going to die any day, that if this is what God wills, I say yes. And in that moment, he says that the heaviness, and he's trying to fight the torturers, not give in, that suddenly he felt this freedom and this peace, like kind of just descended upon him. To know that God is here. That if God is allowing this to happen, then somehow he's here, and that somehow this difficult thing is part of his plan. And I say yes. And so for the rest of his imprisonment, and he was actually released in 1955, like years and years after the war, that he carried this peace and this freedom because he knew that God was with him. And so yours and my invitation this day, especially as we enter into Holy Week, but as we feel the cross every day in our lives in different ways, and we're tempted to just put the cross down and to say, I don't want this, I'm not going to look at it, I'm not going to talk to God, I'm not going to pray, I'm not going to go to church, I'm not going to deal with that. Those people that are annoying me, I'm not even going to talk to them. But the invitation from the Lord is to lean into the cross. To take that which is difficult in our lives and to say, okay, If this is somehow God's will, then I say yes. And so I think the question that we can ask ourselves every day is, what is it that I totally don't want to do, but know I need to? I totally don't want to have that conversation with my roommate, but I need to. I totally don't want to tell the teacher whatever, but I need to. I totally don't want to be the one that speaks up to my friends to kind of try to be the voice of reason, but I need to. And I totally don't want to pray. I totally don't want to go to church on Sunday night because there's going to be a long gospel and Father's just going to go on and on. I don't want to, but I will. And every single time we make that choice, I don't want to. There's a tension here. I know I'm not supposed to, but I want to. And I do God's will. There's freedom. There's peace. There might be a grinding within us until our hearts are aligned with God. But that's the path of peace. When I no longer seek to serve myself, but I seek to do His will. The path of freedom. The path that leads to the resurrection and peace and joy. I want to live not just in a place free of suffering. I want to live in His will.